This episode of the Pain Education Corner is sponsored by the Comella Foundation. The Comella Foundation is committed to relieving pain naturally using osteopathic healing principles. Here at the Comella Foundation, we envision a world where people achieve their maximum potential by being empowered with knowledge and skills to heal themselves and others. This information is to be used for educational purposes only and not to be construed as medical advice. If you have any questions or concerns, please consult a licensed healthcare professional. Bill, the knee pain guru, and welcome to the Pain Education Podcast brought to you by the Comella Foundation. Today we have a special guest. It's a friend of mine that I've known for not too long, but she's super interesting, and I'd really like to introduce her and then let her introduce herself. Welcome, Kim Kruger.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today? Share with us, share with our audience about how you got into what you do. Share about your background, your history.
I am Kim, and I am a Reiki master, also teacher. So I have the ability to pass on the attunements, teach about the chakras, how pain manifests in your body via emotions or traumas or things of that nature that have happened to kind of block that energy center up. I grew up Southern Baptist, very, very conservative. So I'm kind of the crazy person in my family. But it kind of was my journey into Reiki was kind of happenstance, actually. I kind of woke up one day and I was like, I think that there's a lot of things going on in this world that they're not telling us that we're capable of. They're too busy stuffing pharmaceuticals down our throats. So I decided to go completely off the pharmaceuticals, and I started doing Reiki with a friend that was doing my sessions for me. And I started noticing a lot of my back pain was disappearing, a lot of my neck pain was disappearing, my knee pain, like all over the place. Just things just started going away once we started clearing out all these traumas and all of these different emotions that kind of had built up over the years. So at first I was like, you're crazy, like energetic work, like that's a little bit out there for me. And then the more sessions that I had with her, I started noticing like all these things are disappearing. I'm like, what's going on? This is like, it's really working. So I journeyed into getting my level 3 Reiki master attunement.
Okay, this is good. And I want to take a few steps back because I want to make sure people that maybe Southern Baptist, maybe Catholic, maybe Christian, those that are watching, whoever it is, and they get an understanding of what your experience was at the time that you were going, okay, there's more out there. Mm-hmm. What were you experiencing in your life? You mentioned pains in different parts of your body. You mentioned there was something else going on. There was a feeling that wasn't quite being.
I just felt like there was a missing piece to a puzzle, and I never really could put my finger on it until I started, looking at the more scientific side of Reiki. It works off of your chakras. You have a 7 chakra system. They're your energy center.
Okay. Energy centers. And can you give like a brief, I understand them, but if you could kind of give a brief, your understanding of what those energy centers are.
So your first chakra is going to be your root chakra. It'll be at the base of your spine. And basically what that is it keeps you grounded. If it's off balance, you didn't notice it coming through with unconscious like security issues, how you're kind of feeling stuck in the clouds almost. You're feeling kind of lost, you're a little bit all over the place. So that first chakra kind of keeps you grounded. Mm-hmm. It keeps your energy circulating through the energy fields around you via earth or, water, depending on however, different people ground in different ways. I personally like to garden, and that's how I ground.
And just so everybody knows, like all of this stuff is measured in, scientists can measure the frequencies of these areas of the body.
Yep. And that's how your aura comes in place. That's your biomagnetic energy field. So
okay.
They measure the amount of frequency coming off of your body.
Right. And it's important for those that are watching that may be skeptical, that understanding that we're about that close to being woo-woo. Mm-hmm. But we can keep it really grounded. We can keep it really grounded in science, that all of this, all of the, everything can be measured. Mm-hmm. Like it, and you can call it the bioenergetic field. Like from a scientific perspective, you can call it the bioenergetic field. You get into the woo-woo space, they'll call it the aura. Mm-hmm. So
to put it kind of on a more scientific fact, the Russian scientists, whenever a group of people get together to pray, they say, when two or more are gathered here, I shall hear their voices, right? That's what God says. So it's kind of the same system. You're basically taking that ability and vibration through your words, and you're channeling it through to make a manifestation of something that you want. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I believe it was Russian scientists were the ones that did the actual measurements of the biomagnetic energy field, and they used it in that circumstance of where two or more are gathered. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like if you play music, mm-hmm. you have one instrument playing, it's playing frequency and vibration. Mm-hmm. You put a band together, it's more frequency and vibration. You put an orchestra together, more frequency and vibration, and it magnifies the signal that's being sent. Mm-hmm. And these signals can be measured within our own physical body. We can go and they can do their little instruments, and they can measure exactly these energy centers, these chakras, mm-hmm. in different parts of the body.
Yes, sir.
So cool. We have science proving woo-woo stuff.
Science and metaphysics are really starting to align more and more every day. They're proving us right. So, it's such a beautiful thing to watch them finally coming together instead of being on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So cool. I'm glad we took a moment to dig into that, because I think it's important, because there's a little bit of worry or concern or fear or skepticism about that which we can't see.
Mm-hmm. My favorite is when people are like, oh, how do you know you're not working with demons? You can feel it. Like, you can feel the light versus the dark. It has a completely different emotional and energetic feel to it. And
well, here's a question. How do you know if a person's a good person or a bad person?
I think we're all innately good. I just think that some of those blockages are what mm-hmm. they're an outward manifestation, or I should say the outward manifestation of the inward blockages is what makes you come off as a person that may be good or bad. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily think that anybody is good or bad, because you can't have one without the other. It's kind of a polarity thing. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
It does. I also think we're in situations that can give us a sense of whether something is good or bad.
That's what your gut feeling is for.
Your gut feeling. There you go. It's a feeling. Gavin de Becker. I don't know if you've read the book. It's The Gift of Fear.
No, I have not.
Gavin de Becker. I'll put that in the show notes. He wrote this book, The Gift of Fear, and it really shows how in different situations or scenarios, we can use those gut feelings as a way to determine if something is going to be good or bad for us. Absolutely. And how many times we override by being socially trained, to override those intuition or those impulses or those feelings or those gut responses that we have.
And the only person that you end up being mad at is yourself for not listening to yourself.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. That kind of gets us out of the weeds with that. Share what was going on with you when you came across Reiki and you started working with your mentor, your coach. What?
She's the one that kind of got me started into it. But I'd say that it was more of a catalyst to get me towards the journey that I was heading towards at the time. But I grew up, I'm adopted, and there's a lot of kind of secrets surrounding it. And, you know, my dad was in the Marines and he had spent quite a good bit of time. And at the time I was a teenager, I didn't realize that he had PTSD and anxiety. And it was, you know, kind of manifesting in this horrible, scary anger issue. And the older that I got, I started realizing, oh, okay, well, this is the reason why we were always butting heads. I didn't understand that he was hurting. But at the same time, a lot of those things manifested as trauma in my own life. And I was constantly depressed. My mood swings were insane. I was having knee problems. I was having back problems. It was just one constant thing after another. And I was always feeling really terrible. And once Brittany and I, she's the one that was doing my Reiki session, started kind of digging out that emotional trauma from, you know, my adoption and things that were going on with my father as a teenager. I just felt so much more lighter. Like, it's really kind of hard to describe, I guess. But it's almost like that burden was just off my shoulders. And that's a big one. If your shoulders are hurting, like you're carrying the weight of the world on it. And that's a energetic inside manifestation outside. You know, I was carrying all of my problems and not sharing them and not using that to help other people. So I constantly I was always stretching and, you know, it wouldn't do anything. Massages, acupuncture, just nothing helped. It was always there. So once we started releasing from some of those traumas, it was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can help other people do the same thing. And that's kind of how I got to where I was.
Okay. And when you experience Reiki, what is your feeling of it, or what does it feel like? What would someone who's never experienced Reiki before?
It's different for everybody. And it depends on, you know, obviously where some of those blockages are, but it's almost like Archangel Michael. I work with him a lot. And I can always tell when he's in the building because it kind of feels like there's cold water in my veins. Like it's so hard to describe. But it's almost like you're just sitting in this like bubble of white light. And it's just like this nice cooling, tingling going through your veins and your skin, and you can just sorry, it's really it's hard to describe every time I try to. But it's almost like you just everything just melts away and your problems feel so small. And it gives you a different perception of the way that world works, and it opens your eyes in a way that you can't unsee it once you've experienced it. It's definitely I have to laugh. One of my first Reiki clients, I told her, I was like, you know, I need you to drink lots of water. And I need you to take a bath after we're done. I said, if you feel like you have to make noises or burp or cry or whatever, that's your your energy, that's the toxic energy releasing out of your body. She said, oh,
Mhm.
I'm not going to cry. 10 minutes in, she was bawling like a baby.
Yeah.
So it really, it's different for everybody. But for me, it's just a sense of peace that I've never found anywhere else. Long
Eh,
story short.
Sure. And would you say, what would Reiki be called? It's energy work, is what you were saying.
The energy healing modality.
And how is one trained in it?
The first level is kind of learning the basics of it, learning about the chakras, learning about Mikao Usui, who was the originator of Reiki. When you get your first attunement, you can do body work on your own self. And then your second attunement is whenever you start to be able to do it for other people. And then you also learn distance Reiki. So I can literally send you Reiki right now.
Mhm.
And if you weren't paying attention, I could send it for a time when you're sitting still. So Reiki knows no time, it knows no distance. It's simply me channeling a more divine source to trigger your body to heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way to describe it.
So what I'm hearing that we can relate it to more scientific, or would be in a quantum field or quantum sense, quantum physics, in terms of that there is no, time and space. It's pretty relative,
Right.
and
It doesn't exist anyways. It's a human perception.
the observer changes the observed. This was all proven in the movie The Secret, I think a number of years ago. There was a follow-on of that, I believe, What the Bleep. That was another movie. And they did lots of different studies in terms of what they thought based on Newtonian physics, which gets us so far. And then there's another realm of quantum physics, of understanding how things work in a different way.
Right. It's a more expansive way to look at things.
Mm-hmm. And would you say like the Newtonian physics is going to be more of a scientific approach, something that you can really see that's provable? And as we get into the quantum physics realm, it gets a little, maybe that's the pivot point of getting into more woo-woo.
Yeah, that's what scares a lot of people away, is
Okay.
the quantum part of it. Even I don't even fully grasp the quantum physics part of it. It's kind of like, okay, I just know it works.
and it works from your own personal experience of relieving this tension or this burden on your shoulders, or this these secrets from your past, your adoption, what was going on with your dad, or whatever the case may be. And I'm trying to think of the question that is out there in a way. And you're really getting into a level of feeling, or a sense of awareness, or an understanding of yourself in a different way that is outside of, let's say, the box that we thought life was supposed to be like.
So I think that for me, one of the biggest factors of Reiki comes from a Freudian sense, actually. Freud introduced the idea of us having a shadow self. Basically, we were born, we didn't have any predispositions, nothing's going on. And the older we get, society tells us, oh, well, you can't do that. That's not how you're supposed to act. That's not what you're supposed to do. So you repress those things within you. So one of the biggest things as a Reiki master, whenever a client first comes to me, is we talk about the things that they don't like about themselves or what they think has affected their life in a negative light. And then we invite those, we'll call them demons for lack of a better word, the shadow side. We invite them to come in and we accept those parts of us that we're told that aren't positive. We shouldn't act like that. We shouldn't talk like that. We shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. Like, everybody has an idea of what's right and wrong. But at the end of the day, if you're ignoring that part of you, then you're not being 100% in your own life to yourself, if that makes sense.
Authentic.
Yes,
the word that
there you go.
comes to me. It's like, oh, well, okay. Go ahead. I want you to keep talking on this. I got questions, but I don't want.
Yes. So as a Reiki master, that is when you come to me for your first session, that's going to be the first thing we talk about. What do you not like about yourself? Why do you not like this about yourself? Because a lot of the times, whatever is manifesting pain-wise is because of your own perception of yourself. So that is always the first place I go. And then once we integrate the shadow side, we're feeding our ego from a nurturing, healthy sense. Our ego, everybody talks about ego death. Our ego was given to us to protect us. It's a reminder of, well, maybe I shouldn't do this because this happened last time. But what happens is we start feeding our ego with fear and toxicity and just all around nastiness, and we're not nurturing it in a healthy way. And that in itself will suppress your shadow side. So what we're doing is we're integrating it, and then we're nurturing our ego in a healthy way so as to not remanifest those blockages and the outward pain. That makes sense.
Yeah, you're well, it's that integration. We're getting more authentic. I think when a person is acting out of character, I could speak to my own experience. I was like, my deal was judo. I love throwing people. And I would push myself until my body broke, like blew out my knee. That's how I got the t-shirt.
So my question would be, what are you running from to push yourself that far?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was a total sense of not being worthy. Like, I didn't deserve to feel good. I had to push myself to the point of my body breaking. Then I can rest. I really wanted to rest, but I wouldn't allow myself to do so. And if I beat myself more than anyone else, then I deserve to rest.
Right. and that's really common. That's very common of us to do.
Sure. Yeah. All the people that I work with in my program are just another version of myself. Like, it's a prerequisite. The people who reach out to me, type A personality, have the to-do list a mile long, feel very productive. They're not lazy. They'll tell you, it's like they can handle pain. They can deal with it. It's not so bad.
Yeah.
It's been worse. And, they'll go through all of this and it's like, oh yeah, that's what I said 20 some years ago. And so like, I get it. I understand. And it wasn't until I saw that it was like, oh, you mean I didn't have to beat up on myself so much?
Right.
And then I could just be okay now and be more aware of the bound or the edge that my body would get to, that I could say, okay, I'm going to go do something else for a little while. I don't have to push myself until I break.
Exactly.
So yeah. So that was my own version of not being authentic to who I was. So
and that's why you see a lot of empaths turning to drugs and alcohol. Same thing. Like, They just are to the point they're like, I've done everything I can do and I feel like I'm not getting ahead. So I'm just going to numb it. And that's the same thing you were doing. You were numbing it by judo.
Yep. Pushing myself physically, lifting weights, running, biking. It just didn't stop until my body broke, and then I stopped.
Yeah.
But the interesting part was, even though I got the surgery, did the physical therapy, and got my body back to where I wanted, I still had to deal with myself in all of that. Yep. The emotional component, the mental component, my mindset on things.
Universe said, you need to sit down and think about yourself for a minute.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what was that was my big lesson in the process, that you're going to suffer this experience until you get the lesson. And I got the lesson. Well, it wasn't like it was overnight. It was a very challenging process.
But if it wasn't challenging, you wouldn't learn anything from it.
That's right. That's why how it becomes a lesson.
I like to learn things the hard way.
I stopped that. I stopped that.
I
would. Well, I learned the pivot quicker.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's like, oh,
more mindful.
Now it's like, if I have an argument with someone, instead of like, okay, well, hang up the phone and then continue on with my day, there's like a self-reflective piece of like, okay, how could I have done that differently? How could I have avoided that, like tracking in reverse?
Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Okay. But let me quit talking about me. I want to tie this back into Reiki and how people can become aware. You're asking them these questions. It can be a little confrontational, but people can also know it's okay. It's not a big deal.
I'm the type, I've always, my whole life, I've been a people pleaser. I want everybody to be happy. It doesn't matter. We're all going to get along. I'm going to fix it. It's okay. And when I started doing Reiki, I started intuitively getting these messages, you're not doing this, or you're not doing this, or you're doing this, and that's bad. Stop doing that. And it was really hard for me at first, because I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to tell them that. No. My throat starts hurting when I don't speak when I'm supposed to be speaking to them. And so it'll get like scratchy or get a little cough, whatever. And I'm like, okay, fine. So okay, here's your hard message. Don't shoot the messenger, please. But that's it's so funny how things like that just manifest into your life. And you're like, all right, well, I should have listened. I should have said what I was going to say. So now I've got to go work on my throat chakra, and I've got to rebalance my throat chakra and get it right back in line by speaking my truth. And a lot of times that's something that's been my biggest thing, because I've known my whole life there was more, but growing up Southern Baptist, speaking my truth was not a thing that you do. You sit down, you be quiet unless you're worshiping God. All of this spiritual woo-woo, that's all demon stuff. So that was my big lesson through the Reiki, was learning to speak the hard things in conjunction with the good things, because it's not all love and light all the time,
Sure. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Pain Education Corner. If you have a special talent or skill to relieve pain and you'd like to become a guest on our show, visit us at thecomellafoundation.org/interview. Help us spread the word on eliminating pain and suffering in the world. That's thecomellafoundation.org/interview. So, in that process of speaking your truth, usually the pendulum swings further in the opposite direction. And there's that repression of, okay, I don't want to say that, but I'm getting, my throat is tightening up. But then and you say it, and it's the pendulum swings far in the other direction. So now you say things that actually hurt people or aren't necessarily true. So you're speaking
Mm-hmm.
and you're feeling, let's say, different is
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily better on the other side of that
Right.
emotional outburst.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start figuring out where's your balance point in that process.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience of all of that?
I'm a redhead and I'm Irish,
Oh,
so I have a temper.
oh my.
But I also like to let it build up and sit and sit and sit and sit. Because I don't like, remember, I don't like hurting people's feelings. So I will just hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll blow up and I'll lose my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend and I got in a very big fight. And I said something that I knew right off gate I should have never said.
Mm-hmm.
And I had laryngitis for a week afterwards.
Oh, so it's like
it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Got it.
Both ways. Everything in polarity.
Okay.
Speaking too much.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is. Everything's in polarity. You can't have one without the other, and you got to find that really nice center balance right there. If you don't find it, you're gonna have a scratchy voice and have laryngitis.
Right.
But yeah, so I later on apologized to her whenever I got my voice back finally, and I have been very mindful of how I express those more angry emotions. Everybody thinks, oh, you're spiritual, you're not allowed to be mad. No, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to do it in the right way.
Right. Yeah. It's finding a mentor of mine. I'm thinking she would say, use your finest words.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very effective and confrontational, yet it doesn't necessarily have to be mean.
No, absolutely.
But it takes a little bit of practice. And what I've noticed in my own experience of speaking my truth, that's what the kids are calling it these days, speaking your truth, that as you continue to practice this, it does get easier. And you also naturally start gravitating towards people that are communicating on that level or on a different level that have the capacity to communicate with you in a very similar way.
So that would be what we would call like staying on the same frequency, like finding people on the same frequency as you are, because there's people who are on lower frequencies and people who are on higher frequencies, and that's not for naught. We all drop and go back and forth, but you absolutely do attract the energy that you put out there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Okay, let's tie it into clients you work with that are experiencing pain, how they might benefit from understanding these concepts and principles, how you work with them.
Oh, absolutely. So the first thing that I would do would be to tell them, whenever we're preparing for Reiki, unless it's life-saving and you absolutely have to have it, I would absolutely fast off of your pharmaceuticals, alcohol, nicotine, whatever the case is. I would absolutely detox your body and kind of get those toxins out, take some nice warm baths, drink lots of water, because that in itself, before we even get to the energetic part of it, makes a huge difference once you're releasing all those toxins out of your body.
Sure. And just so everybody knows, who everybody's listening, we're not suggesting anyone not listen to their medical advice. You absolutely follow what your doctor says, what your doctor's prescribing. Mm-hmm. This is a personal empowerment choice that you would make to be more authentic with yourself.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for saying that. I absolutely have to have that disclaimer whenever I am having them fill out their paperwork, obviously follow your doctor's advice. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I've noticed in my own life, detoxing off of all these things that I've been putting in my body, eating healthier, that in itself, before we even get to the energetic part, makes a huge difference. We're just constantly poisoning our bodies, constantly. The food we eat, the things we drink, you know, even the air that we breathe, it's everywhere. It's constant poison. So the more that you can do to live your life in a more healthier lifestyle, that's obviously going to make huge amounts of change before we get to the energetic part.
And it also, the scientists can measure this. You start making those changes. You drink more water, you eat a healthier diet, you drink clean water, you start detoxifying your body. By the sheer effect of doing that, you're going to raise your vibration.
Absolutely.
Before we ever get to any sort of session or working with Reiki.
Absolutely. You know, take an Epsom salt bath, you know, or sleep with onions in your socks. You know, it kind of stinks, but it works really good.
Oh, I've not tried that. I've heard about that.
Yeah, it actually really works. It's kind of gross though.
Do they turn color? I don't, they do.
Yeah, they turn black.
Really?
Yeah, because all your toxins come out of your feet anyway.
Oh man.
So
wow.
Yeah, it's like this black, nasty sludge. And that's in your body. Like whenever you see that, that's enough for you to be like, I'm gonna watch what I'm eating and drink this.
Have you ever done any of those foot detoxes?
No, just the onions.
I've done the foot detoxes, and that's comparably disgusting.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Sorry. Squirrel. Back on topic.
Right. No, I'm bad for it too. So that before we ever even get to the energetic part of it, that's what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
And then once we get into the energetic part of it, I'm going to say, okay, tell me the things that are bothering you. Are they mental? Are they physical? Are they emotional? What's going on? So that way I can pinpoint it and I can be like, all right, you're getting a headache. That would be your crown chakra or your third eye, depending, you know. So obviously, either there's a blockage below it or there's a blockage above it, because you have higher chakras as well, but that's a whole other topic. So I would look at the things in your life that are going on, you know, your thought patterns. Are you having headaches? Are you just feeling kind of like you aren't able to focus very well when you normally would be able to? What's going on? You know, or you could do things like your adrenal system. That would be your intestines, your stomach, your gallbladder, your pancreas. That all falls under your third chakra, which would be the solar plexus. That's your confidence center, your I am center.
You said you had sheets.
Yes, I do.
There. Okay. Is that something that you have, we could have links to, we could put in the show notes?
Absolutely.
Okay. That'd be great. Awesome. So it'll give people an idea of how these areas of the body correspond with what you're talking about. They're like these concepts, that it's not just like you're making it up and pulling it out of the air. Okay, perfect. That'll be great.
Yes, absolutely. I can definitely do that. You know, and if you pay attention, it's just like I was talking about my throat being scratchy or having laryngitis after the fight. You know, I wasn't saying what I was supposed to say, or I was saying too much. So that's, my throat was out of balance. So wherever the pain is, it usually lines up pretty nicely to where your chakras are. And then you can take it even a step farther with, you know, Chinese medicine. They talk about the meridian lines in your body. So I teach Reiki, but I also kind of incorporate different pieces of different spiritual healing modalities, so they all work together in conjunction, you know, as we do, our body runs in a clock. We're you know, we're on a cycle, and that's the same thing as the meridians.
cycles. So we have 24-hour cycle every day. We have a 28 cycle days in a lunar cycle that we have influenced. We have a 365-day solar cycle, which is a year. We have let's see, the tides coming in and out. They're on cycles.
Same goes with your body.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. So that would be all your meridian lines. You have your gallbladder meridian, your spleen meridian. That takes everything a little bit one step farther. That's what I'm trying to go for. So yeah, but they all line up pretty decently. If you notice a pain in one certain area, like say, you're the knee guru. So your knee, that would be your root chakra. That because it's close to your root chakra. So you're not grounding very well, or you're feeling a little spacey or something like that. Start grounding. Maybe your knee will stop hurting.
Yeah. Well, for me, like I'll get in my day and I'm always on the computer. I'm doing stuff. My business is online, sending emails and videos and all that kind of stuff. And there will be a time early afternoon where I will just be like, my eyes will be crossed and I don't even know what to do with the rest of my day.
Right.
I'll go out in the yard. I'll work in the garden. Walk around, take care of things. And something happens in there where it all kind of shifts. My head clears and it's like, oh, I'm good again.
Well, just as we have energetic frequency, the earth has energetic frequency too. So, I used to laugh. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but when I was younger, I used to laugh at the hippies. You're barefoot everywhere you go. Now I'm barefoot everywhere I go.
Yeah.
I feel that energy coming up from the earth, and it's almost like it's taking my depleted energy and refilling it. You can't give to others if you're not filling your own cup first.
Right. Yeah. Just like the on the airplane, put your mask on first before helping others.
Right.
And very much like Kim, I feel better walking barefoot. Now I don't get like, I'm not nearly, well, I guess it depends on who you talk to. I don't have, it's not woo woo for me. This is like, I put my feet on the ground. It just feels better on my feet. I'd rather have my feet on the ground as long as I'm not going to be.
Natural stasis isn't to be in shoes. So that automatically right there is part of the problem. Like we're incorporating so many of these things. They're taking us out of our natural stasis. And shoes are part of that. Like our ancestors, they didn't use shoes. They walked uphill, downhill, through the woods, over, and they weren't wearing shoes. And they were so much more healthier than we are. They could walk farther. They could run farther. They could do a lot more things that we could do because we're just constantly looking for an easy way out or something to make us feel more comfortable. Well, I present to you, let's get out of our comfort zones. That's the problem, is we're all stuck in the comfort zone.
Yes. Okay. So your person comes to you, I have these issues, and you're essentially drawing information from them to get a better perspective of what's going on in their life, maybe a snapshot or a cross section of what they're dealing with on a daily basis that they may not be so happy about, or they may not feel good about, whether it be physical pain in their body or emotionally or mentally they may be struggling with, maybe like that weight on their shoulders like you were talking about earlier. So you're getting a sense of this from them, and you're drawing on your experience of your Reiki training and other modalities that you've dabbled in or you've gotten experience on. Dabbled.
I'm really famous for taking bits and pieces of things that kind of seem to fit together that most people might not think they fit together, but somehow it just works. So I don't think that there's any one right answer. It's kind of a mix of things, and it's whatever works for you on a personal basis.
And let me just qualify the right answer, meaning there isn't like one specific modality that
Right.
is going to be the right answer for everybody.
Right.
But we can pull from these different modalities to figure out the right answer for you at this moment in time to help you along in your life, experiencing life more comfortably, more peacefully.
And some of it too is kind of intuition. I work with angels a lot. Obviously I'm just a person. I couldn't do this by myself. you know I'm a vessel. So whenever I kind of take that step into the woo woo land, other planes, dimensions, things of that nature, I call on my guides and my angels and my ancestors, and I call on your guides and your angels and your ancestors. Hey, how can we work as a team for so and so's highest and greatest good? What can we do that will serve their highest purpose and help them get back on their path and help them get lined up? So some of it, is obviously kind of knowledge given to me by other worldly, other dimensional type planes, I guess, without trying to get out too far.
Okay. We're going to have to unpack that a little bit.
Yes.
So what would you say to somebody who grew up Southern Baptist that is hear you talking about the otherworldly dimensions and ancestors and guides and all of that? How would you step that back and break it down into some bite-sized chunks that maybe I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm just saying that it is. Well, you had to go through this process. So I think part of your journey, that what was in your throat, what was on your shoulders, and those aspects, you had to go through an iteration of this.
Mhm.
May not be the same for everybody, but
Mhm.
someone who has had this background, upbringing, experience in their life to different degrees, how would you begin to dissipate some of the fear that you had to overcome to like move them maybe an inch more in that direction to make their life a little bit more comfortable, a little bit easier? Good question, huh?
Very good question. And I'm trying to formulate my answer without going too conspiracy theorist.
Mhm.
I think that for me, I started realizing that religion's kind of a box. Everybody says they're right and the other religion is wrong. Everybody does that, right?
Mhm.
So what makes you right over them?
Mhm.
That would be my first question that I would ask. It's a
Mhm.
very fundamental question to me. That's kind of the first question that I ask myself. Well, why is this religion saying that they're right, and in the cycle,
Mhm.
whatever you want to call it. And then I would have to say that everybody has a foundational shaking circumstance that happens to them. Something that shakes them out of their comfort zone and it kind of like gets that seed planted.
Mhm.
And so to take that back to, the otherworldly dimensional type stuff, I found that I've had these insane dreams my entire life.
Mhm.
And I always thought, oh, they're just dreams. And then one day they started coming true.
Mhm.
Could be a day later, could be a year later. And it would always come in the form of me having conversations with somebody that I felt like I knew, but had never actually really seen.
Mm.
And the more that I delved into the spiritual path that I am on now, I started realizing that sometimes it was higher versions of myself talking to me, giving me advice, pointing me in the right direction. Sometimes it was angels. I've had many dreams about seraphim, many dreams, just kind of like, but they would always be standing there, just standing behind me, you know, protecting me, I guess would be the feeling that I would have gotten from it. So it was just little tiny things that kind of led to me realizing, oh, well, maybe I am astrally projecting or lucid dreaming, or, whatever the more scientific terms you would want to use for it. This path is not for the faint of heart by any means, especially coming from a very, very, very conservative background.
Well, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get that. And that path, I don't believe, because I had a similar path. Similar. You don't choose that path. The path chooses you.
Yes. And
Like
and the more you fight it, the
worse it gets. And I think that's where you see so many people struggling with the pain that they're physically experiencing in their body, the drug addiction that they're on, the alcohol addiction that they're on, because they're not aligned with their spiritual path.
Absolutely.
They're not aligned with their level of awareness as to what choices to make and where to go is more dictated by others than that internal guiding force that is guiding them in a place.
Every person in existence that has been, will be, is now, they all have the psychic abilities. Everybody has them. But we're programmed from birth to think that that's wrong, that, if you hear things or you see things, you're schizophrenic or you're this or you're that. Well, how do we know those people don't have a more direct connection to source? Mm-hmm. How do we know that if we didn't nurture that and teach them how to ground themselves and how to safely walk the astral plane, how to safely use your psychic abilities, how do we know that those people wouldn't have turned out completely different?
Yep. I agree. There's that place. I think it's, how can we be more gentle with ourselves?
Absolutely.
For me, maybe I would have only dislocated my left knee 3 times.
Absolutely.
However,
and
there you go.
I think that you have to get to that point of causing yourself physical pain, when it's so easy, whenever we could just teach our children, how to nurture those things that the world keeps telling us is bad, which takes you right back to the shadow inside.
Yep. Now, this brings up a different vein, and what we might have to have is another call.
Let's do it.
But what I'm suggesting is that there's a balance where I see, when we talk about the pendulum, it's like, okay, I'm going to repress my voice. Now I'm going to let it go. And both of them are not good. What I see is that people have repressed themselves, or they've repressed themselves in a way, denied things, and it's showing up in children in a negative way, that they've
you could call it a generational curse.
I agree. Yeah, there's this balance that I think we need to push our bodies in certain ways. Like I believe the body needs to be pushed. We need to strengthen our body. We need to exercise. We need to do healthy things, yet in a way that is not self-abusive.
Absolutely.
And
body's a well-oiled machine if properly taken care of.
And in the same respect, on the other end of the spectrum, there's people who are like, well, I'm not going to push it. I'm just going to sit on the couch and eat Cheetos all day and play video games. And what ends up happening is now you have people that physically haven't pushed their body at all. So they've abused themselves in an equal and opposite other direction. So I think it's finding that balance of how can we push ourselves? How can we grow in a way that allows us to be authentic to ourselves?
And there's always push and pull. So, on the days when maybe you pull a little too hard, you take the next day and you self-care. You go, relax by the pool or garden or do whatever, that way your body has time to refill itself it energetically.
You focus on, I call it focus on recovery. Like, how can I recover from this experience? Okay. We're going to have to wrap it up here. We're getting close to an hour-ish on the call. You were saying that you work with clients remotely with Reiki, and what we have with the Comella Foundation, with the Pain Education Podcast, is we set it up where we can have below this video on the page where this interview will be hosted on the Comella Foundation website. People can schedule a time to work with you, do that, as well as we also have what is called our pain relief portal. So we have a woman, Jeannie Anderson, out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that is doing remote muscle testing. So they can fill out their information, send it to Jeannie. Jeannie muscle tests based on their name, their age, their location, and she would line them up. Whichever practitioner that I've interviewed can send them a link to that page where they can listen and then schedule a time to work with that person. So that is what we're doing. Kim, thank you.
Absolutely.
For your time. It's been fun. Do you have anything you'd like to share with anybody, as closing?
I think that the most important thing that I can stress to anybody and everybody right now is there's a lot going on. Be good to yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. Nobody's going to get everything right all the time. So as somebody who beats herself up quite often for not getting things right the first time, don't do that. Be kind to yourself. Stop it. Love yourself.
Yeah, I think that's real important. It's and people kind of get a little woo, it's like, I don't do that.
No, you do. You do if you say you don't. That's right. People got to worry about the worst.
So awesome. Well, Kim, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your experiences. I think this is going to be very valuable information for so many people out there that are struggling with pain in their body.
Absolutely.
I'd encourage anybody who's listening, please reach out to Kim.
Absolutely.
If you believe she can help or support you along your path in any way. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. This is Bill Paravano, the Knee Pain Guru, going to sign off for today. Thank you so much for watching the Pain Education Podcast, brought to you by the Comella Foundation. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning into this week's segment of the Pain Education Corner. Join us next week for another conversation on natural healing methods to eliminate pain. To learn more about the work we do at the Comella Foundation, please visit our website at the Comella, Comella Foundation.org.